Mike is the designer. Well, that's all three of them going now. So Mike was the designer of Dynasty League Baseball, and it's powered by Pursue the Pennant Dynasty League Baseball. And I really hope Mike talks about this because this is what I'm really curious about. It's in the permanent archives at the Hall of Fame and received a bunch of awards over the years. It was one of the top 100 hobby games in the last 50 years. Um, I think the big thing to me is how did it get to the Hall of Fame and how is it still there? I think that's absolutely amazing. Mike's going to share with us. He's got a presentation, and I'm sure it's going to take us into the game a bit. So um, I'll have some announcements and follow up at the end about various SABR activities that are going on. But now you really didn't come to hear me talk, so go for it, Mike. Unless Derek, you want to say something real quick.
No, let Mike go ahead and get started, and then we'll chime in at the end with some Q&A.
Great, thanks. So can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
The Our Story screen?
Yep. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So everyone, thanks for coming. So this is our 40th anniversary of the game. So I started this back in 1982. I was an intern with the Miami Marlins minor league team. And later on that season, I got promoted to the Baltimore Orioles PR department. And so I got to check in like Brooks Robinson, Chuck Thompson, some of the players that would come by and do the PR duties. I would sit in the press box with everyone, fax out the end of game story. So it was a great experience just working for a major league team. So about that time, I came up with the idea that designing this baseball simulation game is what I wanted to do. So it just turned out that this was a great way to test the game as well. So I got to be friends with Dennis Martinez, El Presidente of the Orioles. He ended up being one of my first play testers for the game, which is pretty cool. And later, one of my pickup basketball friends, Paul Molitor, also became one of my first play testers. So you can see in our story, there's Paul and I playing what was the first play test of the game. Paul took me into the what I believe is the umpire's room at County Stadium, kind of like in the bowels, a room that I don't think is used that often. And there we went, and we were playing the first game. So we fill out the score sheets. I had created two teams, the 82 Orioles and the 82 Brewers, to test this out. And we fill out the score sheets. Now, little did I know it, this is in 1984. Little did I know that I would be playing, I'm playing with the future AL Manager of the Year, who with the Twins, when he was the manager. So when we started the game, I think he got my team out 1-2-3. He comes to bat because he's the home team, hits a home run. They're rolling the 3 percentile dice, hits a home run. We just kind of looked at each other, smiled, and laughed. It was just a great remembrance of that time playing the game. So I've got so many different stories of playing different players, different managers. During that same time, I was playing at Milwaukee County Stadium with some of the Orioles, and lo and behold, Earl Weaver comes in and walks by. And he just looks at it like not figure out what we were doing. He was kind of interested in what we were doing, but Earl is always kind of gruff, just kept on walking by. But I did play quite a bit with Dennis Martinez, so that was a lot of fun. So with the help of the Milwaukee Brewers, Jim Gantner, Bob McClure, Craig Counsell's dad, John, they all became limited partners in my company to launch in 1984. 1985, we actually started selling games. We came out with the original collector's edition, and we're off and running. And then Craig played the game growing up too. So another manager that played the game. So I'm going to jump in, and oh, you want to know about the Hall of Fame? Well, so early on, we went to the Hall of Fame, and this was with the original collector's edition. They also have a more recent version, and I was just there at the Hall of Fame, not last year, but the year before, and I had not seen it since the original receipt of the games. So what they do is they go into the basement of the Hall of Fame where they store all their archives, and they have gloves. I mean, this is like this is a museum, right? So they have gloves. I have gloves. They bring the game out to me, and this is the first time I had seen it in 40 years. So I'm opening it, and it was just fun looking at it. But yeah, it resides next to, I don't even know what it's next to. I mean, it could be by Willie Mays glove for all I know. But it's pretty cool that it's there. So that's that story. So I'm going to switch over to the game. So this is what it looks like. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
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 Okay. So this is the online version, and we're showing it with the iPad. This is a Wrigley Field game with the iPad. Now, the online version plays on Mac, Windows, iPad, iPhone, and Android. We've got a little thing with Google right now. They need to verify our Android version again, but that'll be back up shortly. And then below it, those are all the board game components. And one thing we just did for the 40th anniversary is we brought back the 3D ballparks, which were extremely popular. And so we have the 2023 to present 3D ballpark wall inserts. That's what you're looking at. That's Wrigley Field, that's in the game box. And I don't know if you can see that clearly. I have some larger pictures here that we're gonna move on to. Let's see how this looks here. That's a card. Is this better? I think you can see the Wrigley Field better here, a bigger size. So you can see that it's not just that it looks cool, but it's actual functioning part of the game. So you can see on the outfield walls, there's baseballs, and they have the distance. So when you're playing the game, if you have a deep drive result, you generate a distance, and that's adjusted by factors like wind, temperature, the player's power rating is the first thing that you're using to actually generate the distance. And then you're checking to see if you hit it far enough to go over the wall. And there's all these special home runs as well. So in left field, you can see down the very left field line, it's 375 feet to just clear over the wall. But if you hit it 400 feet, it goes on to Waveland Avenue. And that's an actual play result in the game on the chart. If you look over on the right, on the tab, that's the actual chart. It's a little bit too small to read on the screen here, but that gives you all the different play results. And there's home runs into the basket, home runs onto Waveland Avenue, home runs onto Sheffield Avenue, which is in right field. So Wrigley Field is one of the most fun parks because the wind plays such a factor, right? So in the spring, when you go roll on the weather charts, which are another part of the game, the wind is normally going to blow in. You're also going to have colder weather. So that's going to have a major impact on lowering the score, and these deep drives are going to fall short because of the weather. In the summer, the wind's going to blow out, temperature is going to be warmer, and you're going to have a lot more home runs. The ball is going to travel further, but you'll know the exact number of feet that the ball is hit, which is really neat. The original Pursue the Pennant ballpark wall inserts had artist renditions. These are actual photos, high resolution, wide angle photos that we have. So they look really cool. I'm going to go through some of the other ones here. This is Miller Park. And you can see like some of the special home runs. There's one 450 feet that goes into Bernie's slide. So that's obviously a huge home run. And everyone probably recognizes this. Oracle Park, San Francisco. You can actually hit a ball into McCovey Cove if you hit it 360 feet down the right field line, or 440 if you hit it to right field in Oracle Park. And there's also things like foul territory that's on that right tab. That affects the game. Wrigley Field obviously has tiny foul territory, so balls that might have gone foul, balls that when you have a foul result, you'll have another chance most likely because it will go foul because of the tiny foul territory. Let's go to the next one. Busch Stadium. So this is the new Busch Stadium. And you can hit a ball 470 feet in left field into Big Mac land. So those are some of the cool looking effects of it. Now I'm going to skip back to the player card. So this is Paul Molitor's 1982 player card. So just to give you a real brief understanding of how the game plays, you roll 3 percentile dice that generate a number from 0 to 999. The numbers 0 to 499 are always going to be on the hitter's card. 500 through 999 are always going to be on the pitcher's card. So if we rolled, for example, I'll do an easy one here, 444 versus a righty, we'd look down the right column. There's 2 columns. There's versus right, and then there's versus left. The results are in the middle. So 444 would be a ground out, and then the shortstop would be getting the ball. If it was versus a lefty, it would be a ground out to the second baseman. So the normal results are always the blue results. About 80% of the time, you're just going to roll the dice once, and you're going to read the result right off the player card. So it moves really fast. Even though there's a tremendous amount of detail and realism in the game, it goes very, very fast. There are charts for range plays, the deep drives that we went through, base stealing. There's just a lot of different things. Just to go through some of the ratings here. So the players have their range ratings. So Molitor is an A range. 50 is his air rating at third base. So 5 is the worst. 100 is the best. He also played shortstop that year. He was rated B5. They have bunting ratings, A through F. A is the best. F is the worst. Base running goes 1 to 10. For the stealing, there's a lead rating and there's a steal rating. And there's separate ratings for stealing second, third, and home. And you might ask, well, why have all the separate ratings? Well, probably some of you remember 1969 Rod Carew. He stole home 7 times, I think. Maybe someone can correct me. And so he would have a very high steal rating of home that would just be when he's stealing home. So it would be a unique rating. The same way with the ratings, I should have mentioned for the range rating, there is an A+ rating. So that's reserved for, let's say, for shortstops. Ozzie Smith in his very best years would have an A+ range rating. So for truly historically great performance, that particular rating is reserved for that player in that season. So that's just a quick overview. What I'm showing you is actually part of the pursuethepennant.com store. All these things, all these images are in the store. You can download the brochure. The brochure tells you how to play. It goes through all kinds of different examples. So you can go there for more information on playing the game and seeing more detail. It goes through all the features. I could spend much more time on all the features. One feature I do want to mention that I think is really important is there's a situation rating. Now, Paul Molitor has a clutch hitting rating. So these results here change if that situation rating is in effect. So, for example, if there was a hard ground out normally, I'm going to do a different one. If there was a line out normally, and the player has his clutch hitting in effect, which is 2 outs and runners in scoring position, that result would change into a deep drive. And all of these results are on the same line. So it prompts you to think about if any of these other situations that are in effect. Like, as I said before, 80% of the time, it's just going to be a normal result. But for pitchers, they have 3 different situation ratings. And the 3 examples I'd like to give are for the jam rating, which is 2 outs and runners in scoring position for pitchers. Think about Pete Vukovich in his 1982 Cy Young year. So he had an ERA of, I think, 3.34, if I remember right, but he allowed a lot of base runners. But what made him so good in his Cy Young year is that he was able to strand so many of these runners with 2 outs in scoring position. So he's like the poster boy for the jam rating. The next rating is the on rating. So think about Jim Palmer. As probably a lot of you know, Jim Palmer never gave up a grand slam in his entire career. So he has an on rating for many of his seasons. So it makes it just that much more difficult for him to give up a home run with runners on base. The on just means he prevents home runs with runners on base. And the last one is the off rating. And this is for pitchers who rarely walk the leadoff man. So think about Dennis Eckersley, Curt Schilling. It's a very important part of all 3 of these ratings are a very important part in recreating ERA, because there's so many different factors besides not only the total number of hits and walks that you give up, but when you give them up, right? So that's why you have these different situation ratings, and it allows for a much more realistic replication of pitcher ERA. So enough with that. So I think that we covered a lot with the board game, to at least give you an idea of what it's like. I did really want to focus on the ballparks because we're so known for the ballpark effects. Go into so much detail in the ballparks, and they're really fun to use in going through the ballparks. So I think I have the online version next. Yeah, okay. So I'm already logged in. So with the online version, you can play on, like I said, Mac, Windows, iPad, iPhone, Android. I think my favorite is maybe the iPad. I'm using Windows and Edge right here. So I'm actually at our league page for the Sunday Night Baseball League, but I'm going to go to the home page here after I logged in. And we are offering on a continual basis. You can go to dynastyleaguebaseball.com and you can create an account and you can play for free for 1 month. And if you decide you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. And even if you unsubscribe, you can still play for the whole month. So, you're not losing anything. But it's so much fun. The reason why we created the online version is because 40 years ago, when this all started, I started the Sunday Night Baseball League. It started out as a board game league, and this is a draft league at my house, and we'd all get together on Sunday night and we'd play the board game on the table. There's like 10, 12 of us, and we'd all play at the same time. Well, as time goes on, people moved, went to different places. So we came up with the idea that, hey, we need to have something where people can play in a draft league online and connect easily and have a true multiplayer experience to make it really easy for commissioners to run a league. And we've accomplished that. It's so easy for you to be in a league. For members, for league commissioners, I'm going to show you, first of all, this is what it looks like when you log in. So if you want to create, if you just want to do a series and play 2 teams, you can go here. And this is where series is. And you can play solitaire, you can play versus a friend. I'm going to go ahead and start a solitaire series. This is the most basic way that you can play. And I'm going to go ahead, create a new series. And we have 41 seasons that you can select from. I'm going to choose the 1976, which is our newest season. And I'm going to be Milwaukee Brewers. And the computer opponent is going to be 1976 Detroit. And Detroit is going to be at home. So I'm selecting that I'm away. Detroit is at home. And then we set the date. We're going to select a May game. We're going to say May 7th, and we're going to have a day game. Settings, and we're ready to launch here now. We're going to create the game. And then you just click the join game button and it will launch the game. Takes a couple seconds to load, and we're going to be in Tiger Stadium in just a second. You'll go outside the park first. Okay. And if you're playing solitaire, you just enter the park and you'll go in. It gives the weather here. It's 87 degrees in May. Wind is 14 miles per hour in. That's my dog, Teddy. And if you're playing your opponent, you would wait until the opponent shows, and then you'll just enter the park button will highlight, and you'll be able to go in. But we can go right in right away, and you can see we're entering the park. And it's telling me the game is being played in hot weather. Both starting pitchers will have their endurance lowered because of the hot weather. Now, with the online version, it does all the chart lookups for you, does everything for you. So it's a great, easy way to start playing. You don't have to know anything about the board game. You can just start playing because everything is done for you. I'm going to go ahead. Now, this is our roster screen where we make our GM decisions on who we want to have on our roster. I'm not going to make any changes right now, so I'm just going to click OK. Starting pitcher, I'm going to pick Jim Colburn. Now you can see here, if you put your mouse over the player, his player card pops up. And you can also, if I click on him, I can view Jim Colburn's information. So you can see his player card comes up for Jim Colburn, and this is where you can see his 1976 season stats, his 1976 splits. You can see the simulated stats. Since this is our first game, he has no simulated stats, but it's a great way to actually view any of the player cards and their different stats. So we're going to select Colburn. As you know, Mark Fidrich, this was his iconic year with the Tigers. So I'm sure the computer manager will pick him to play against my 76 Brewers here. And here's Mark Fidrich. And here's his card. You can see a 2.34 ERA, 249 versus lefty, 221 versus righty. If you click here, it'll actually give you more information. You can see his splits. Versus righty, he had a 276 on base percentage against, 273 slugging, 549 OPS. So terrific card, terrific season for Fidrich. I'm going to go ahead and use the Get Lineup Assistance button, and it's going to load a historical lineup versus right-handed pitcher for me. So this is the most used historical lineup for the Brewers versus a righty. And you can obviously create your own. It's really easy to move in different players. But I'm going to put Hank Aaron here. Let's do this here. Instead of Bertie Carbo, I'm going to insert Aaron. So Aaron's going to be our cleanup hitter at DH. That's his last year with the Brewers, by the way. He was there with 75, 76 for the Brewers. And then here it shows, let's do George Scott here. I'm just going to click on George Scott. He'll actually pull up his ratings here. And when you mouse over it, it actually tells you about the rating. Range rating A+, outstanding, among the best ever. So George Scott, the Gold Glove fielder, terrific fielder. Okay, so we're all set to play now. Oh, one other thing, you can save lineups. So if I wanted to save this, I could go here. I could call this versus right-hander in that slot, save it. We've saved this lineup now, so we can call that up any other time we want for another game. So here we go, ready to start. It gives us our weather. Can you hear the sound? I don't know if you can hear the sound, but one of the things that we thought was really neat is to incorporate sound. And I was really skeptical about the sound because I didn't want it to be tinny or seem fake. But if you try out the game, if you can't hear the sound, I think you'll find the sound extremely realistic. It corresponds with all the actual play events that are going on. It's really high quality. People that play the game always seem to comment on the sound as well. So to show you some of the features, so again, if you mouse over Fidrich, his player card comes up, or you can mouse over any player, the player card will come up. The other thing you can do is in the outfield, there's 7 different outfield locations. You can see down the right field line here. And if I moused over that, that pulls up a section of the Tiger Stadium chart. And you can see, I don't know if you can read this, but 365 to 425 feet is a home run into the upper deck. 315 to 330 is a home run onto the overhang. And if you've been to Tiger Stadium, that's one of the iconic features, is that overhang in right field that basically creates these home runs that wouldn't be home runs, right? So, and you can go through all of the different sections of the field, and you'll see all these different results that can happen. It also shows how well the ball carries. Some parks, the ball carries better than in other parks. And it also is showing us the wind, which is 14 miles per hour in. So it's going to subtract 10 feet from the distance. Our temperature is 87. It's going to add 10 feet. So our total distance adjustment is 20 feet. That's all shown there, but it's doing all these calculations for you. So you can go through and look at all those. That's pretty much it. So then we've got all of our decision buttons here. So we're just going to swing, and here we go. So it shows us here a high flyout. You can see the result right off the Fidrich's card. And you can see the numbers come up too. So it will show the dice roll for each of the cards. So it's a direct translation of the board game. Everything that went into the board game gets translated exactly like it is and into the online version. Now we've got a walk through down money. Another feature here, some people don't realize right away, this scoreboard flips over. This is the stat scoreboard. It flips over and gives you the line score. And it shows the temperature, 87, partly cloudy, shows the home plate umpire. Home plate umpires are rated for their strike zone. We might not need that anymore as we get into the ABS here in the future, but it does show that. And then the wind, 14 miles per hour in, just click on it to go back to the stats scoreboard. So we've got money on first, George Scott is up, and we're gonna swing, and he draws a walk. So we've got Hank Aaron coming up with runners on first and second against Fidrich. And it's a high fly out for Hank Aaron. Now, if you want to see the play-by-play again, you just mouse over and you can see what the play was, like a replay, I guess, right? 2 out, first and second, Daryl Porter's up. We're going to swing, pops out. So that was the first half inning. Now, at any point, you can bring in a substitution. When you do that, you just click on substitution button, which is right here. And this is where you'll go ahead and make pinch hitting, defensive replacements. If you want to bring in a relief pitcher, you go to the bullpen and you actually warm up the pitcher 2 batters before he actually comes into the game. So he's warmed up properly. And you'll see them go into the bullpen. Like I can warm up Danny Frizella, and you can see he's warming up. I'm going to undo that. I don't want him warmed up. So that's how you do that. Defensive things, you can bring your corners, your infield in, your corners in, intentional walk. The box score is always available. You just click on the box score. I'm not sure if we're going to see it though, because it's on the website and it's going to go to a different screen, but that's where you can see the box score. So let's do another half inning here with the Tigers batting. Here's Ron LaFleur, right out of prison, right? But this actually was one of his better seasons. He strikes out. And here's Verizon. And here's an outfield range chart. So we're going to see the range of the outfielder on this play. So first of all, we're going to determine where it was hit. It's going to Lozano out in left field. It shows that he's got a 73% chance of a drilled down the line play of making it. And we get the roll, and he makes the catch. So that actually comes from the range charts on the board game. And that's one of the things that is different about Dynasty League Baseball Powered by Pursue the Pennant is the visualization of all the plays. You don't just have a range play. You have a play drilled down the line in left field. You have a play into the gap in left center. You have a slow roller to shortstop. You have a line drive to the first baseman. So you can visualize what type of range plays are actually going on. And they'll have different effects in the game. So if you have, for example, a looping liner to the center fielder, that's either going to be a single or it's going to be caught for an out. But if you have a ball that's driven into the gap in left center, that's going to be for extra base. So it takes all those things into consideration. So we've got 2 outs here for the Tigers. Rusty Staub is up. This is a foul ball. So this is going to take into consideration the foul territory that I talked about earlier. Small foul territory, there's a 69% chance he'll be out of play. But in this case, he's got room. He makes the catch for the end of the inning. So that's the quick demo on the just playing a game in series. All the games actually look like this when you're actually in game. But I do want to get to some other things, so I'm going to go out of the game. And I want to go back to our home plate here and show you some of the different things you can do. So we have greatest teams tournaments that run every day, and they're multiplayer. So we're going to go over and view the tournaments. Let's see if there's one. Here's a Wednesday. So there's one coming up at 10 p.m. And these are bracket tournaments. So think like March Madness, except with the greatest teams of all time. And you can sign up at any point. Just click on it, and you click on Join the Tournament. And there's a pull-down menu. I'm not sure if you can see these teams, but we have 83 different greatest teams to select from. Derek, can you see these at all, or the pull-downs, the teams, or doesn't that show up?
Yeah, no, we can see them.
Oh, you can see them. Okay, that's great.
Yep.
Sometimes you can't see them. So you can see all the different teams. Look at all the different Yankee teams. 27 Yankees, 39, 57, 61. So yeah, so you make your selection, and then you're actually playing other live opponents in real time. If there aren't enough live opponents to fill out all the spots, then a computer manager gets assigned, and you go ahead playing the tournament. But it's a really unique kind of thing. And because it's a bracket tournament, there's a lot of pressure or excitement, I guess, to win every game because it's single elimination. So you have to win to continue on. And then after you win, the bracket will automatically advance you, and then you're on to the next tournament. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can show you a bracket so you can actually look. Okay, so here's one of the recent, this is a smaller bracket, but you can see here's round one, round two. The 2016 Cubs won this bracket. And then you can click on the game, and it'll show you the box score. I don't know if you can, does this come up, the box score? Okay, great. So you can see the box score. And it also gives cumulative stats if we click actually on the team name. There's our cumulative stats for the tournament. This is our best Baseball Reference Nightly tournament. So we can actually hold up to 64 players, and we have had that filled with all 64 slots. So that's the greatest teams tournaments that you can try. So we have series, greatest teams tournaments. The other thing are the leagues. So we have greatest teams leagues where you select your favorite greatest team, and then you play a full 162 game season. Then you can play a season replay. Works like most season replays where you select your favorite team, you take them through the entire season, the historical lineups versus lefties and righties are all there for you. Actual transactions, trades take place during the season. You start out with the same start of the season rosters that each of the team has. So those are more for solitaire players. But what's unique is that you could actually invite a friend into your season replay. So if you're a fan of, let's say, the Cardinals in 69, and your friend is a diehard Cubs fan from 1969, you can be in the same season replay in the same division, and during the replay, you'll actually be able to play head-to-head games as part of your replay. The other games will be versus the computer manager, but it just adds another element of being able to play other players. Now, the most popular way people play is draft leagues, and these are multiplayer draft leagues. And you can see here just how many that we have. There's 100 and this is our private league directory. There's 108, I think, right now, 109, or actually 119 different draft leagues. That's not players; those are in complete leagues that you can join. The Facebook group is really good for joining leagues. This Leagues Looking for Players tab actually allows you to contact the commissioner of the league and join. So here are the Don Mossy Baseball Association. They've got 12 teams. They've got 1 slot left. And this is all updated in real time. So I can click the contact button and it'll put me in contact with the commissioner to join the league. So one of the things, as I mentioned before, that we were trying to do with the leagues, and I'm going to go to our league, our Sunday Night Baseball League, just so you can see what it looks like. So I'm the Cardinals in the Sunday Night Baseball League. You can see go to the schedule. So we just started the season. So we're using the new 2024 season. So here's the schedule. I've already played my first 3 series of the year. I've got the Phillies coming up next in our draft league. So it has the schedule. Has the stats here. So here's my team stats for my team. And you can switch between batting, pitching. We've got totals. We can do splits. It also lists your roster. And it'll look like the other roster, but I've got an injured player. Royce Lewis is injured. No surprise, right? He's injured for 1 game. And one thing that new players miss is that on the roster screen, you need to mouse over the bottom. And I don't know if you can see this, but the blue scroll bar will come up. And that allows you to scroll over and see all the ratings on the right here. You can see here, we track your usage, how many remaining at bats versus lefties and versus righties for the players that are use limited. For the pitchers, this is showing their usage. So I just pitched Paul Skeens. He's tired, so he's got the yellow color. The pitchers in the blue, they are the ones that have low endurance. Yenier Cano, I just put him on the DL. He's in red. So that's my roster. So you can access your roster. Then just the game log. Okay, so here's our game log. So here's my whole season. I took 3 of 4 from Milwaukee the first series, took 3 of 4 from Cincinnati next series, 3 of 4 from the Cubs. So I'm doing well. You can click on the recap button, and that brings up the box scores. So all your box scores are available for your league. Now, as a league member, it's really, really easy. This is our league homepage. But on this page, you can actually see games in progress. And where this is really fun is if you're in a pennant race in your league, you'll actually see games going on here in the games in progress, and you can click on them, and you can click on the game summary, and you can see the game summary updating in real time for your opponents. So it's kind of like scoreboard. It's very much like scoreboard watching in a real time situation. So here's all the different members. We've got 24 players in our league. The most unusual one is Jason. He's in New Zealand, but we're all over. So, and then we've got like all of our champions here, our pennants. Here's our current upcoming schedule. But it's so easy for you to be a league because there's no files to import or export. Everything is updated automatically in real time. You don't have to fool around with any import, export of files. which is great for the commissioner not having to deal with that. So as soon as your game is over, you can go to your league standings and it will be updated in real time. You also don't have to worry about like home versus road. It doesn't matter. You can play home games, you can play road games. Now, as you're playing, you know, sometimes people will ask, well, I don't know if I have enough time to be in a league. So the way it works is you have a schedule each week of, for our Sunday Night Baseball League, we play one series per week. So for that series, you can play at the scheduled time, or you can send a message to your opponent saying, hey, we need to reschedule. So he'll accept your reschedule request, or he'll deny it and say, no, we need to play, you know, Monday instead of Sunday. And so it's pretty easy to decide. It works really well. If you, for some reason, get really, really busy and just can't make the series, well, then your computer manager can play for you. And so when you start your league, you'll have a start date for your league, and you'll have an end date. And the neat thing is, it's like clockwork. Your league is going to start on that exact day, and it's going to end on that exact time. So the league keeps moving like clockwork, and it's very, very easy to be in a league. The commissioner, he's got some tools here. So let's go to the commissioner. I'm going to get to the some of our new features, but here's your commissioner page. So if you're a commissioner, you can go here. I happen to be the commissioner, so that's why I can access it. So you can edit rosters. And this actually works for season replays as well. This is the same interface. So here are your free agents on the left. And if you want to move them to active for any of the teams, you've got your selection of all the different teams. If you want to move them, you just highlight them and then move to active, and then they become an active player. So it's a very easy interface. The other tool that you have that I think there's like a league news. This is where you allow contact for if you need players for the league directory. The new feature that we added, though, that shows up for league members is the free agent. So you can see here, the last thing is free agents. So this makes it really easy. So all the commissioner has to do is edit his rosters. And for the draft, he's got a free agent list for the draft. And all the league members can access this draft free agent list. And it makes it really, really easy for the commissioner to create that draft list, because it can be a big, big job for commissioners to create draft lists. So it makes it really easy. The other thing, maybe the last thing for the new feature, is our official rules have contracts. So you can go to the contracts page, and it will track your contracts for your league. So they work like, I'm sure some of you remember the official Rotisserie League rule book that came out, I want to say early, maybe mid 90s, late 90s, that had the Rotisserie League rules, and we follow those league rules and adapted them for simulations. So there's basically, you have a 3-year contract when you draft the player in your auction draft. And you can see here, I've got the salaries listed for my team here of how much I got them for in the auction draft. It shows the years left on the contract and if they have an option year. Now, at the end of the season, it will tell me exactly what my options are for my contracts. So it'll say, you don't have the option, you have to release him. You can extend the contract for X number of years, adding additional dollars to each year, but it will tell you exactly what those options are. And it makes it really, really easy. at the end of every one of all the league members finishing their contracts, you have that draft list that I just showed you. And you're all set for your draft, which is great. So that's the last thing I wanted to show. I think we turn back to Derek. I've been talking long enough, and we can get to any questions.
Yeah, I know we've got a couple in the chat. I'll let Mark address those in a moment. I had a couple things that I made notes of. If you want to just real quickly give a backstory on the DOS and the Windows versions of the game. I know that that you're basically the online. I know the Windows version was maybe mid to late 90s, and the DOS version was mid 80s to mid 90s.
We had the Windows version that we came out with. It kind of reached the end of life. We could go no farther with development, and that's when we decided to do the online version. We actually never had a computer manager for the old Windows version. It allowed you to play much like the board game, where you're actually managing both sides and having more control. But in the modern day of simulations, you really need to have a computer manager. So there were so many new features that were brought on with the new online version.
The other thing I wanted to mention was, I know when we met out in Milwaukee and Chicago for the SABR event, you had mentioned the amount of research that you put into the weather park effects and things. So if you wanted to just briefly mention that.
Yeah, so when I first started out, I showed you all of the different park effects. The weather's kind of an interesting story. So there are weather charts. I went into the Milwaukee Public Library, this is before the internet, and had to research all kinds of weather bureau information to create weather by region and then by day, night, to create wind results for each ballpark, temperature results, and sky. So those three things were created for wind. And here's what's interesting. I did take these same weather charts, and I happened to meet Jim Cantor, the famous Weather Channel hurricane guru in St. Augustine, and had a chance to show him my weather charts, and he loved them. So they are Jim Cantor approved weather charts.
Nice. All right. I don't know, Mark, you want to read off some of the messages in the chat?
Derek, my memory's failing me, but this is the simulation in the league that we had the competition in Chicago, is it not?
We did a 64 team tournament. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I wasn't able to do it because I snuck in a few extra games because the Jays were in town, and although I'm not happy, so let's not talk about it.
Yeah, so that bracket that I showed you is exactly what we ended up with for our SABR Chicago tournament. We had the bracket tournament, and we all played live, and we still have the video of that as I went around the table showing everyone playing live in real time.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of interest in that, and some people were talking about it last year again when we were at SABR. God, I don't even remember. Oh, Minnesota.
Minnesota, right?
My memory was failing me. I'm getting too old. Anyway, Mike wants to know, can you speak to the statistical accuracy?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're able to do now with the online version is do a lot of season replays. And we found that we can pretty reliably get within 80, 85, 90, 95% of actual. Now, to actually, I get some of these comments about, small sample size and people, starting out their league, things look a little bit out of place, but you have to do about 100,000 season replays to actually remove all randomness out of your simulation to determine things. So that just kind of shows like the extent of research that you'd have to do to actually pinpoint that. But there was a lot of study that I did. I worked and got a lot of information from, well, you have to understand, when I was designing this, this was the time when the Bill James baseball abstracts were just coming out. Nothing on the market had anything like the first Pursue the Pennant game when it came out. It introduced ballpark effects. It introduced like the clutch hitting and the jam, foul territory, all these different effects. No other simulation had that at that time. And there was a lot of information that I was able to, Pete Palmer gave me some information that was very useful. As I mentioned, Bill James. And at that time, it was just very difficult to get information because there was no internet. Later on, you know, access to a lot more information. And now we use things like StatCast to do our ratings. One of the things I'll mention, since talking about statistical accuracy, I think it's really important to do cross-era league adjustments. And right from the start, I did that. So all the player cards are adjusted for the league averages. So it allows you to accurately replicate 1968 Bob Gibson with Barry Bonds 2001. So that's what I'll say about the accuracy.
Well, I hope Gibson strikes him out. Okay. John wants to know, do you play head-to-head in your league? I think you answered this, but
Yeah. So we do. So that's the thing, is we play head-to-head, and you have the chance each series you can play head-to-head, and it's really easy. You just click the join game button and you're joining the game. You don't have to have any third-party software or do any of the what are those, the IP connection, address, none of that. You just click the join button and you're connected. So yes, that was the main thing, is we want to make it really, really easy to have people be able to play head-to-head. Because we were playing the Windows version that Derek had mentioned before, and we were just struggling. Sometimes it would take me half an hour just to connect, and other times I couldn't even connect. So this was really a revelation, making it so easy to connect and play people head-to-head. If you haven't had a chance to play people head-to-head, I strongly encourage it. You know, if you have a good friend, that's just like the best way. But you know, when we grew up playing, a lot of us didn't have anyone to play with, so we just naturally played solitaire, right? But this allows us to play with friends, maybe college friends that we haven't seen for a while, neighborhood friends, family friends. And we have a lot of that. We have a lot of people who, you know, college students playing with their fathers head to head. But for the league environment, yes, I mean, it's essential that you can play head to head games. And that's where like the real juice of the game is. I play solitaire season replays, but I look forward to my draft league games more than anything, because there's something about playing another player head to head and matching wits with them in real time that you just can't replicate.
okay. Jeff, I started reading this and I thought you were saying you were a Cards fan, and I was going to say I'm sorry about how bad they've been in this offseason, but I misread it. Jeff says he's a cards and dice guy, and there's draft leagues that play around the country head to head, or are there draft leagues that play around the country head to head with the board game?
Yes, I would say it tends to be more localized though. So I can tell you, for example, Mike Wilner, who's the Toronto Star columnist, he's got a big league in Canada, and I believe that there are 20 players in his local league. And most of them are local. They play remotely, I think, with a couple of the players. Some of the other leagues, there's a league out in California and Los Angeles. They've been around, oh, geez, almost as long as my SNBL for 40 years. I think they have like six players. So you don't have to have a lot of players for a local league, but yes, they exist. I think that the online version facilitates a lot of the distance issues and allows you to create larger leagues, but there's nothing like a local face-to-face board game, though. I think there's something really special about that and just meeting people face-to-face and playing the board game. So I appreciate, having those local board games, and they do exist, but it's mainly among friends. I just had an opening that I saw, I think in our Facebook group, they'll post openings for some of the board game openings. So that's a good place to find league openings.
Okay. Yeah, I'm well aware of Mike Wilner. Sharp tongue. Steve wants to know, does the game engine have any overrides to the pure 50-50 approach that address low occurrence results such as Nellie Fox's low strikeout totals?
Yeah, so when I was mentioning the situation ratings, like for example, the off rating for that Dennis Eckersley, Kurt Schilling. So what those ratings do is they actually take away walks that the batter normally would have had, and they become a foul ball that could be caught or goes out of play, and then you just re-roll. So yeah, there are things like that that allow to replicate things like that are extremely low. It takes an extremely unusual situation for it not to be recreated properly. I can't even think of one. We're only talking about the difference of maybe instead of getting within, I don't know, 95%, you might be able to get to within 85%, something like that.
Okay. Tim wants to know how customizable the computer manager is in the online leagues.
Yeah, so I didn't show the computer manager, which I probably should have, but it's very customizable. There's so many different selections you can do with your lineup, your saved lineups, your bullpen, and how you want to set up your bullpen, your pitching rotations. So yeah, it's a very detailed computer manager. Again, I strongly encourage people to take advantage of that free month over at dynastybaseball.com. You have access it's not a trial. You have access to everything. So it's full blown. You can start your season replay with any of the seasons that we have, and you can go in there and you can just play series. You can play around with the computer manager. Actually be better to try out in a season replay because you're actually in a league and it will use the actual MLB schedule.
Okay. Jeff is wondering if the drafts include players from the amateur draft or just players that are in the MLB.
Just MLB.
Okay.
All the player cards, we don't card minor leaguers. They have to have major league stats.
Okay. Is there a minimum before they get a card?
There's no like hard and fast minimum. I would say approximately 15 at bats, 15 innings pitched. That's very approximate.
So Moonlight Graham doesn't get a card.
No, he would not get a card. As you get below 10 at bats, 10 innings pitched, the card, especially when you're doing splits, you might have just like one at bat and one hit. to replicate that, to me, doesn't even make sense. I think you're almost better off using like the pitcher batting cards that are part of the game, if you're going to try to replicate that, because it's just so random that result is meaningless once you get to that low level of at bats, especially like for draft leagues. Having cards like that just kind of is, you've got 1,000 batting average. So what do you do with that? So.
I think
Okay,
you
Rich-
mentioned this, Mike, but I think there was something in the online game where it will kind of throttle the usage for those low plate appearance, low inning players.
Right. So, like, if someone had one at bat and one hit, they would get a use rating. So you couldn't use them to start a game or bring them in as a pinch hitter. You could only bring them in like as a defensive replacement. And then if they happen to bat later on in the game, uh, they could go ahead and have that at bat. So it really prevents using them in a situation maybe that they weren't. Like if you had a player with one at bat and one hit, they would be very dangerous in a game-winning situation, right? That maybe they weren't actually used in. So it prevents that type of thing. And the rule book is actually at the website, so you can go through the rule book. It goes through everything in terms of the usage and what I just talked about. You can download it for free. So it goes through the use ratings.
Okay. Richard is wondering, and I think I can even answer this, is can you connect him with any leagues or players in Pittsburgh? I think your Facebook is what you said is the best way to connect with people who want to play face to face.
Yeah, so if you're looking for like a local board game league in Pittsburgh, I mean, there may be one that comes up, but the league directory that I showed you, that was for the online version. And that's really where more of the leagues are. And as I mentioned, most of the board game leagues are local leagues among friends. There are a few that do recruit, other players, but I think that there was an opening in Arizona League that was just recently posted, and I think that they have remote play as well for the board game. So, but yeah, the Facebook group is probably the best place to post and say, look, I'm looking to join in a local league in Pittsburgh if you're not playing the online version. If you're playing the online version, you can join any league. It doesn't matter where you are.
Okay. Dan, before I read your question, the only thing to remember from 1992 is that the Blue Jays won the World Series. First time it was not won in the US. So I just want to point that out. But he remembers a bizarre play chart of 1992 PTP, which even included the California Angels bus incident, which resulted in a few players missing a few games. Does the current version of Dynasty League account for the remote chance of the extremely bizarre events of a season?
Yes, I didn't mention the bizarre play chart. All of our bizarre plays are based on actual bizarre plays that happened during the season. So we have things like, I don't know if you remember, there was a train derailment. I think it was in by Camden Yards, and I think Safeco Field. So games can be delayed. The Tony Kubek, when he got hit in the throat with the ball. Um, it was Dave Winfield that hit the bird in Toronto. That's one of the plays, and there's so 0 to 999 is the number range on the bizarre play chart. There's not 1,000 bizarre plays, but there's probably at least 100 bizarre plays, all based on actual MLB results. I didn't make any of those up. They're all plays that actually happen, and they're really fun to look at, and a lot of people really have fun with them. So injuries also that's where you'll find most of the injuries are on the bizarre play chart.
or Randy Johnson hitting the
Yes,
what
the
is the
bird
amazing one?
exploded. Right, so
Yeah, that one's amazing because the bird comes out of nowhere.
right.
So he aimed that one up. Okay, Lee wants to know, or has a comment here. He's as a kid he played status pro baseball. What was that an influence on your game design?
That's a good question. So the first game I ever played was Gil Hodges' Pennant Fever. I don't know if anybody ever heard of that, but came out around 1970. That was the first game I ever had. So that probably had definitely some influence. But as I mentioned before, most of the influence came from reading the Bill James baseball abstracts. As soon as I started reading those, I realized that there were so many different facets of the game that weren't being represented in the current baseball simulations. So that was really the impetus for the simulation.
Okay. That is right now everything I've got in the chat. We can open it up if people want to ask Mike questions. If you got a few minutes yet still, Mike?
Sure.
Yeah, what's
So
my number 41 original 1984 set worth in
Oh, good
good
question.
condition?
Well, that's the game that's in the permanent archives of the Hall of Fame. So yeah, that and the one in the Hall of Fame is number 1 of 5,000. So yeah, I guess you've got a pretty. If you have 41, that's a pretty good number.
Replete with baseball cards, the full set of baseball cards too, which was a nice touch, by the way, back in the day.
Yeah, right. So if you remember, we actually that first edition allowed you a space on the card to put your baseball card at the very top. And you could use a sleeve holder and it would hold the baseball card on the player card. And we actually sold Topps 1984 season, or maybe 85. It was 85, I guess, season top sets as an option along with the game.
Hey, Mike, I was actually the runner-up in that SABR Greatest Teams contest from a couple of years ago. So I can attest to how exciting that tournament one and done style is.
Oh, great. So that was the Chicago one, right?
Correct. Yeah, I had the
Yeah. Okay.
1954 Indians. I lost to the 2006 Tigers.
Oh, and the Tigers were the eventual champions.
Yeah. And the funny story there is I was actually on vacation in Italy with my wife. So I'm sitting in the hotel room. It's like 5 a.m. and I'm going through the tournament, and my wife is about ready to kill me with the glare from the computer. So, needless to say, but it was fun. It was intense. I mean, I couldn't just log out and let the computer finish it for me. I had to keep going. So,
Well, so it's addictive, right? If
yeah,
you get that far, there's no way you want to drop out.
right. I was
You
like,
wanna win.
I'm gonna have to deal with the fury tomorrow, but I'm gonna have to finish this. So,
Exactly, and I'm glad that you
yeah, it was
let people
fun.
know just how exciting those bracket tournaments are because Derek was obviously in it, but it's really exciting to try to see how far you can go, and it's uh, single elimination, so you have to
Yeah,
win every game.
definitely. Hey, I have one more quick question for you. So with the league that you're in that you showed, I noticed some auction prices. So you actually do conduct an auction to create the teams, or it's a draft?
Yes, so we do conduct an auction. So now we are conducting our auction on the Fantrax draft room.
Oh, I see. So not on
Okay?
your side, you do a separate site to conduct
Do
the
a
auction.
separate draft. In other leagues, they conduct their own draft in various ways. I think several others use Fantrax. Now, I will tell you that our big emphasis on new features As you kind of saw at the end there, we did the free agent list, the contracts. What we're working towards is developing an integrated draft room. So you'd actually have the draft room as part of the site. So that's what we're going towards. We actually have a good part of it already completed that was started quite a few years ago. I don't know if you played the game early on, but we used Silverlight as the connector, the app to run and Silverlight became obsolete, so we were just stuck, and we switched over to Unity, and that allowed us to go ahead and be cross-platform and be in mobile, just allowing you to play everywhere. So with your account, so for people who don't know, when you have an account, you can play on all your devices. You don't have to buy a Mac version. You don't have to buy a Windows version. You don't have to buy an iPad version. You get access to play on all your devices. So you might be like Andy, you were maybe on your computer, your Windows version,
Laptop, yeah,
laptop
yeah.
and then maybe later on, what you could have done, you could have played on your iPad on the airplane.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and log into the same account in the same league. So it allows you just a lot of flexibility to play on all your different devices, which we found a lot of people are playing on mobile right now. So, and like I said, I think my favorite version is on iPad.
Okay. Andy, there's nothing for finishing second, just so you know.
No, I know, that's the problem.
Yeah, but you're permanently in the bracket, so it shows your name in the bracket that you finished second.
There you go. That's better than nothing.
Yes.
I can
Timothy,
appreciate Andy having his priorities straight,
Right.
staying up till 5 a.m. in Italy, finishing out the tournament.
yeah.
That's great.
Well, I
Surprised
did
you're
I
married.
did feel some pain in the morning, but it was worth it.
Yeah, surprised you're still married. Okay, Timothy's asking, or he says, thanks for a great game. He bought a copy late last year and it's still on his table. He mustn't be married because if it was at the kitchen table, he'd be in trouble. And Andy, he's living that just one more game that we all experience. So
Great.
just some comments, not questions. Anybody else
Yeah.
got questions?
Mike, I've got one about the ballpark inserts. Are there a certain number that come with the board game, and are there like old time ballparks available?
Great question. So at the store site, the new store site at pursuethepennant.com, the ballpark wall inserts are listed in the season player card sets right at the bottom next to the 2023 and 24 season player card sets. And that set is all 30 current ballparks. So you get all 30 of the current ballparks. They are gorgeous. I can't say enough about just how cool those ballpark wall inserts look and how much people love them. We are planning on doing a past season set of them. We've had a lot of people that have wanted to play in, let's say, Tiger Stadium, old Yankee Stadium, the Polo Grounds. So we're going to be doing something. It may be tied to the greatest teams. We may be doing like past season for the greatest teams because that's such a popular set for us. So yeah, so that's what's coming down the pike is some type of past season, but the current is 2023 to current, and that has all 30 current ballparks. It also, it also has the field insert, and you can't really tell this, but it flips over. So you have the grass turf. And for people that played the original they'll remember that it flipped over and there was a grass turf because there was more turf parks, right? But we did keep that. So there's a turf side and there's a grass side.
Anybody else? Derek, you got any questions?
I'm out of questions.
I have one more question. I was driving. I couldn't respond when you talked about the Pittsburgh. I wasn't necessarily looking for a face-to-face league in Pittsburgh, but somebody who has the computer game or just people that live in Pittsburgh that play the game that I could possibly connect with.
So are you talking about the online version, the board version, or both?
Either one. I'm sure probably the online version, I would imagine.
Yeah, so there are a lot of people all over the country and including Pittsburgh. So no doubt you could be connected. I know just off the top of my head, a few people in the Pittsburgh area that are in one of our league members is the commissioner of another league, and that league I know has a couple members from. So yes, that Richard's showing his Pursue the Pennant original version. That's
Original is actually this one here.
yeah. So,
and I was wrong in a 41. It was 394. Sorry about that.
oh yeah.
But it is autographed.
Yes, I signed that, and I'll tell you a story about that signing. So, those games were manufactured in it's either Fond du Lac or Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I can't remember the printing, basically factory, right? So those game box covers, they're actually sheets, and then those sheets get put on with a machine onto the actual box, right? So I sat down in this basement with 5,000 sheets and signed them all, 1 through 5,000. And then they took those sheets, and then those sheets were placed onto the game box. So, yeah, it was a big job just signing it all. Yeah, so there's the insert with I think that's grass for the original game. I talked to Derek about showing the actual game on camera. I tried it by myself. It didn't go well, so I thought I would just use the actual photos that we have. But you're doing a good job here with the camera, Richard.
I think Richard might need to speak to in order for us to see the full screen on the Zoom call. Otherwise we won't see it during the playback.
Oh, okay.
And then here was that original version when he talked about the baseball cards.
I think Mike would have to
Yeah,
stop.
so there are the baseball cards, right? And you still have the baseball cards, which is very cool.
Yeah, I think Mike would have to stop sharing for us to see Richard's stuff.
Oh, I would have to stop sharing. Okay.
Or just look at my scroll down and look for my name, I guess. But
Yeah, that's 85 tops, it looks like.
it is. Lonnie Skates Smith. 3 different World Series champion.
There. Okay, I stopped sharing.
There we go. So yeah, Richard, if you speak, it'll show up on the recorded
Sure.
video.
Yeah, you can show the inserts again for the original. And as I mentioned, with the new inserts, instead of the artist renditions, we're using the actual photographs, and the photographs are really, really nice. They're high resolution, wide angle, so they show foul line to foul line in a lot of detail. You can make out everything. And like I said, I want to make them so that they're functional. So they actually have the chart on that right tab that I showed you. And that skips you a step of having to search for the ballpark chart. All you have to do is look at your ballpark that you have in front of you, and everything is right there.
Houston Astrodome. Yeah.
Yeah, you see the artist renditions there, so that's the Astrodome.
Yeah, with the
And you can see we still
Yeah.
have, we use the same ballpark or baseballs to show the distance. Now, the original had distances that weren't in feet. They were just abstract numbers that went from 1 to 20 that generated distance. So you generate like a 17, okay? But the new version of the ballpark ball inserts actually generates a distance number. I think, which I like so much more, because you always think in terms of feet, right? It was a 400-foot blast onto Waveland Avenue, so I think it's more realistic that way, having the feet, and it works better too with the adjustments in terms of the because we're adjusting for the winds and the temperature and things like that.
There's the pitcher's hitting card.
Yep, pitcher's hitting card.
Nice. And the instruction booklet.
Yep.
Even an addendum for 1989 season rules.
One thing is, I have not changed the rules that much. If you're playing the original version, you're going to find to play very similar to the current version.
There's the wild play chart.
Yeah.
Here's look at number 621 to 628. I'll read it. The infielder races towards the left field corner and makes the left fielder races toward the left field corner and makes a tremendous over the shoulder barehanded catch. If he has a special skate symbol, he drops the ball for a 3-base error.
Bonnie Smith.
And that was the guy that I pulled out just at random. The first.
Yes, there he is. And we still have the hot symbols. So players who, and we actually do the research on this, players who rejected more often than others, they, on the bizarre chart, let's say they're arguing over balls and strikes or whatever, they'll be more likely to be ejected. Bryce Harper, good example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Anybody else got any questions for Mike? I'm conscious that we're past 6:30 here, or pardon me, 9:30 for those of you on the East Coast, 6:30 for those of you on the West Coast. Any other questions for Mike?
Mike, is this your full-time job?
Yes, this has been a 40-year full-time job, basically. I worked for Stats for a little while, Stats Inc. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And as I mentioned, I started out with the Orioles and Marlins, but this has been a full-time job. There's actually 4 of us that are working in various capacities. Jamie's our developer. Dan does a lot of our research, our legal, our accounting, and Josh does a lot of our database work. So I couldn't do it without them. There's no way. And then we also have people that help with the order fulfillment, things like that. We've also, I didn't mention this, but we've also added distribution on Amazon. So if you're an Amazon person, you can buy the board game up on Amazon right now.
You still living in Milwaukee?
So that's a long story. So actually, I'm living everywhere right now. So I'm actually calling in from Mesa, Arizona right now. I'm in spring training for the Cactus League, and we're going to be here all through spring training in the Cactus League. and then we're going back to Brookfield. So I'm going to be there for a while, and then end up back in Florida in the fall. There's the original game board. And that game board, that's kind of from my mock-up that I did with Paul Mulder. I had a mock-up of that game board. That's actually the final version of it. So
Mike, I was going to ask you, how long does it take you to card a new season? Or I think you said with the online, you just went back and you redid, or you created cards for 1976. So how long does it take you to generate those?
yes, that's a good question. So we've sped up the process quite a bit. Josh, like I mentioned, he does our database work. There are a lot of manual ratings that we do extensive research, especially as you get into the older seasons and you do things like range ratings. It's not always so clear cut in terms of what that range rating might be based on the metrics. So I'll go in and actually look into various scouting reports and multiple metrics in order to determine a rating. So to answer your question, it can take 2-3 months to do a season, and that's pretty much semi full-time at least working on it. We're putting a lot of time, and I'm not the only one working on it. So Dan typically does the pitcher ratings, and I do the batter ratings. So I'm only doing half the ratings, and it still takes that long. So there's just a lot of research that goes, because we have so many detailed ratings. Things like the durability rating, we have to go in and research if they went on the DL, if they were injured. So yeah, it's a lot of work.
Do you have something that automates at least like the initial process, and then you go in and tweak the numbers, or?
Yeah, so what we do is the data gets imported into our player card program. It actually generates player card databases. At that point, and that happens very, very quickly, at that point, the cards are done. And that's also where, for example, the league adjustments that I mentioned are entered in for the cross-era play. Once they're done, the player cards are all done. So like all the numbers on the player cards are there. A lot of the formula-based ratings, like for example, the air ratings, are all based just on formulas. There's nothing besides those formulas that goes into the rating. So that's a good portion of it. But then you get into like range, throwing arm, durability. Those are just some of the ratings that I do manually. Base running is another one. The steal ratings are all done in formula ratings. So it's kind of a mix, but we're well on our way once we actually create the player card databases. Everything is done in terms of all the card numbers. So I don't actually change like any card numbers that are on the cards. Those are done. Those are kind of like set in stone. So it's just the extra work for the ratings.
You still keep in touch with Tom Tippett?
I haven't talked to Tom in a while, but we collaborated on the first Pursue the Pennant Windows version. So the story of that is that this was 1987, I want to say. We went to the SABR convention in Chicago, right? And we met Tom Tippett. He was showing his game at that time, and we brought him on to do the Windows version of the Pursue the Pennant game. Now, at that point, I already had the board version of Pursue the Pennant was already out. So what happened is that Tom basically made the Pursue the Pennant cosmetically look like the board game even though the inner workings were different. And I actually did the rating. So I did the ratings for the board game. Tom used those same ratings, and those were used for what was the Windows version. So that's how that all came about.
Okay, guys, I think we're gonna have to wrap it up now. Or Jacob's gonna get mad at us because it's much longer than normal. And I don't want to get in trouble with Jacob. So I want to thank Mike. I want to thank everybody. I think at one point we were up to about 25 people tonight, which is great. We'll be posting the link and everything. This will be back on YouTube. If there was something you thought you heard and you weren't sure. I see Maurice just asked, can you buy the cards on Amazon? I just took a peek. In fact, you can't get the game in Amazon Canada, but you can in Amazon US, but you can't get the cards. And Ed wants to say great presentation to you, and you're getting lots of people saying that right now.
Great.
So much, Mike. Maybe somebody will be brave enough to have another series at SABR, Texas this year.
That would be great. That was always fun to do that. And you can do it remotely, so that's one of the advantages of it. So yeah, as far as the Amazon though, we only sell the one version. So the version that's on Amazon is the current season version. So it has 2024 season player card sets with the game and with the ballpark wall inserts that I talked to Derek about. All the other seasons are at pursuethepennant.com. You'll need to go to the main store to get any of those.
Okay, thanks again. Derek, when's our next meeting?
Yeah, I'll run those down real quick. We've got 3 more on the schedule so far. March 11th, not our usual time. This one's a 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. That's with Lenny Melnick. So if you've got any fantasy baseball questions, go ahead and register for that one. And then we have Nate Edwards, April 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Nate's going to discuss the baseball video games, and specifically, he's got a lot of knowledge about the Japanese baseball games. So looking forward to that. And then we have Steve Etzel on May 8th, and he's going to be talking about how he analyzes tabletop baseball simulations, creates spreadsheets to create player cards for games that are no longer on the market. So those are the 3 that are currently in the queue, and I've got a couple more I'm trying to line up soon. So
I'm pretty sure the next guy can't help me with fantasy baseball. I'm that bad. Anyway.
Yep.
Thanks again, everybody. We'll be talking to you soon. Keep watching the Facebook and Twitter, and we're on Blue Sky as well now too, aren't we?
Blue Sky. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, less political than Twitter. Let's not talk about that. And I'm going to let you all know tonight, we will not become the 51st state ever.
Well, maybe we'll become the 12th province. How about that?
There you
Well, I've heard that too. I don't know if we want you and your debt.
go. Mike, thank you so much for coming on and
Thank
job,
you
man.
for
Dynasty
doing
League
this.
with us.
I
Yep.
appreciate it. I enjoyed talking about the game, obviously. So.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, guys.
Bye,
Everybody
everyone.
have a good night.